This is not a conventional ghost story. It involves a paranormal entity, but it turned out to be a noble one, as I found out. It was back in 1996, November 17th, when I was 21. I was on my way to visit my grandparents' house in a small coastal town called Fairfield in Maine. I had left Boston late in the afternoon and got delayed unexpectedly due to a flat tire. Fairfield is a quiet town by the sea, known for its serene beaches. There are two routes to Fairfield. One via Interstate 95 through Augusta, which is longer but safer, and the other, a more deserted scenic route through the countryside. Since I was running late, I chose the shorter one. It was around 11:30 p.m., on the outskirts of Newcastle, when I saw a girl waving her hand to stop my car. There was a small hill on the right side of the road and a farmhouse at some distance from where she might have come. I pulled over. She looked about 15 or 16 years old and was dressed in a hoodie and jeans, her hair tied back neatly. She approached the passenger side window, and I rolled it down. Her voice was calm, almost soothing. "I need to get to Fairfield. It's urgent. Can you please drop me?" she asked. I was tired from the long drive, but Fairfield was on my way, and the thought of some company sounded better than just driving alone. I let her in, and we continued on the empty road. We chatted along the way. She told me her name was Rachel, and that she had gone to visit her uncle in Newcastle, but missed the last bus home. She said her uncle was supposed to drop her off, but fell ill unexpectedly, leaving her no choice but to walk or hitchhike. Rachel was polite and easy to talk to, but as we neared Fairfield, she suddenly asked me to stop the car. I glanced around. On one side was the ocean, its waves faintly visible under the moonlight, and on the other, a hill with nothing but wilderness. "Drop me here," she said. I hesitated. "Are you sure? There's nothing around here. My house is just beyond the hill." "I'll be fine," she insisted, her voice suddenly more firm. I offered to walk her to her house for safety, but she refused sharply. "No thank you, you shouldn't come further. I'll meet you again someday." "Just go now," she said, stepping out of the car. Her tone left no room for argument. I watched as she disappeared into the darkness before driving away. When I reached my grandparents' house about half an hour later, I told them about the encounter. To my surprise, they warned me not to stop for anyone in that area at night. It was rumored to be haunted. I laughed it off. Paranormal stories never scared me. A few days later, I went to Fairfield Beach with some friends. While we were relaxing, a man approached us from the direction of the hill Rachel had pointed to. He introduced himself as Sam, a local farmer. I casually asked him if anyone lived nearby. He said, "My house is the only one there." I asked if he knew anyone named Rachel. He hesitated, then said, "Rachel was my Ford's. She passed away 10 years ago." The ground seemed to shift beneath me. I told him I had given Rachel a ride 2 nights earlier. He listened intently and then shared a chilling story. Rachel had died in a car accident at the very spot I dropped her off. She had been coming back from her uncle's house when the driver, tired and drowsy, lost control. Rachel died instantly. I followed Sam to his house, and as I entered, my breath caught. A photo of Rachel, her face calm and familiar, hung on the wall with a garland draped around it. I couldn't sleep that night, haunted by questions. Where had Rachel been all these years? Why had she appeared to me? And why had she said, "I'll meet you again"? Over the next few years, I visited Fairfield occasionally. Every time, I wondered if I would see her again. Then, on November 17th, 3 years after our first encounter, I saw her at the exact spot. Rachel got into the car without hesitation. She looked at me and said, "You know who I am now. Aren't you afraid?" I told her I wasn't. We talked for hours. She explained that after her sudden death, she had been in a transitional state, waiting to fulfill her remaining time in the mortal world. She said her encounters with me were a rare exception, as not everyone could see or interact with spirits. Our conversation ended as we reached the accident site. Rachel thanked me and disappeared, saying, "We may meet again, but only when it's meant to be." Years later, she appeared one last time on the terrace of my apartment in Boston. She warned me not to move into a house I was about to buy, saying it wasn't safe for me. I listened to her advice, only to learn later that the house had a dark history of violence. Rachel never appeared again after that night, but even now I remember her with gratitude. wondering what bond had tied us together.